Hello, welcome back to our channel, where we explore the deepest and most terrifying mysteries of the world. Today, we have content that will chill even the bravest. We'll dive into real and supernatural stories full of mysteries about the world of Freemasonry. These are accounts of sinister shadows, evil presences, secret rituals, and reports of spirits that live there, as well as paranormal encounters that defy all logical explanations. Get ready to hear stories that will stir your mind and your heart. From visions of spectral figures to frightening premonitions, these episodes will leave you questioning everything you think you know about life and death and the world of Freemasonry. Stories that will make you think about what exists on the other side. Watch and draw your own conclusions. Warning: these stories are real and reported by a Freemason and may affect the minds of sensitive people. They were sent in by viewers. If you have a story you would like to share, send it to us below. The Pact of Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter was an ambitious young man, freshly graduated from a prestigious business school, with dreams of rising to the top of the corporate world. He knew that to achieve this, he needed more than just skill and determination, he needed powerful connections. And it was at this point in his life that Freemasonry came into the picture. At a networking conference, Ethan caught the attention of an influential executive, Mr. Harrison, known for his success in one of the world's largest financial corporations. Harrison was also a high-ranking Freemason and saw in Ethan the potential for something beyond a mere corporate job. The invitation to join Freemasonry came during a private dinner, where Harrison explained that the order could offer Ethan not just connections but real power and global influence. However, there was a price. Freemasonry, Harrison explained, demanded absolute loyalty and often required difficult choices. You will have to decide between your personal success and your private life, Harrison warned. As some of our rituals may test your limits and your convictions. Intrigued and somewhat intimidated, Ethan accepted the invitation. His initiation was marked by rituals that seemed out of another era. In a dark chamber, lit only by torches, Ethan was led before an altar, where he swore allegiance to the fraternity. The ritual included the marking of his skin with secret symbols and the consumption of a dark drink he was told contained the blood of the order's founders, a test of both courage and submission. Almost immediately, Ethan's career took off. With Harrison's blessings, he was rapidly promoted, gaining access to projects and transactions that would normally take years to reach. Wealth accumulated, and Ethan found himself living a lifestyle he never imagined possible. However, the demands of Freemasonry began to weigh on him. Ethan was frequently called to participate in rituals that tested his morality, and he found himself increasingly isolated from his family and friends. His longtime girlfriend, Sophia, who had always been suspicious of the order, found herself marginalized in his life. Ethan faced the painful choice between his love for Sophia and his loyalty to Freemasonry. The tension reached its peak when Ethan was summoned to a particularly dark ritual. During this meeting, he was forced to demonstrate his fidelity in a way that threatened his own integrity. Horrified by what was being asked, Ethan made the difficult decision to step away from the order. As he tried to disassociate, Ethan discovered that the influence of Freemasonry was more pervasive and sinister than he could have imagined. His financial resources began to mysteriously disappear, and he found himself being professionally sabotaged in every conceivable way. Sophia disappeared without a trace, leaving only a note suggesting she knew too much. Fearing for his life and Sophia's, Ethan fled, assuming a new identity in a distant city. In his hideaway, he lives with the constant fear of being found, while trying to unravel what really happened to Sophia. Ethan Carter's story ends with him looking over his shoulder, a broken and paranoid figure, eternally tormented by the power and greed he once sought to serve. His story remains a mystery and a warning about the price of ambition when intertwined with powers that operate in the shadows, shaping the world in ways most people will never read. The Secret of Evelyn Crawford. Evelyn Crawford had always been a solitary soul, grown up in the shadows of the oaks lining the small town of Westfield, New England. From childhood, she found refuge in books, escaping the reality of a family life shattered by the tragic death of her younger sister in a car accident, an event that left her parents in perpetual mourning. Evelyn, in turn, channeled her grief into reading, dreaming of distant worlds and hidden secrets. As a young adult, she became the town's librarian, a job that seemed destined for her given her passion for ancient books and forgotten manuscripts. However, the tranquility of her life hid a simmering ambition. Evelyn always wanted more: wealth, recognition, the power she saw gleaming in the eyes of the successful visitors to the library who came from outside the town. It was this ambition that drew her to the mysterious book she found hidden in a neglected corner of the history section. The book, bound in dark leather and marked with symbols that seemed to dance under the library's dim light, spoke of a local Masonic lodge, a society that promised influence and riches beyond imagination to those who dared to delve into its mysteries. Evelyn's curiosity turned into obsession, and it wasn't long before she was noticed by the lodge members. They invited her to join them, seducing her with promises of a life filled with luxury and power. The initiation was a somber process, marked by nighttime rituals in hidden chambers beneath the town, where candles cast twisted shadows on the stone walls. Evelyn was subjected to ordeals that tested her spirit and sanity, but the promise of abundance kept her steadfast. For a while, she enjoyed the materialism she had always desired: expensive clothes, trips to exotic places, and a bank account that never seemed to empty. However, Evelyn's new life came with a price she hadn't anticipated. She began to notice that each member who tried to leave the lodge met a horrifically tragic end. Fear began to erode her existence. Wealth and power lost their luster as she realized she was caught in a web from which there was no escape. Desperate to return to her old life, Evelyn began searching for a way to free herself from the pact. It was during a stormy night, as she rummaged through old records in the damp basement of the library, that she heard footsteps behind her. The light flickered and went out, enveloping her in darkness. When the flickering light returned, the silhouette of a hooded figure was at her side, a tragic smile outlined under the hood. "Did you really think you could leave us, Evelyn?" the figure whispered, their voice a chill in the darkness. Before she could respond, everything went dark again. Evelyn was never seen after that night. The next morning, the only sign of her presence was a page from the Masonic book, lying on the basement floor, with the words, "The price of knowledge is eternal," written in elegant, yet threatening handwriting. The town never spoke of Evelyn again, and the book disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared. The Westfield Library remains to this day, a silent monument to the secrets it holds and the prices they demand. The return of Jonathan Greer. Jonathan Greer always felt there was a veil of mystery surrounding his family, particularly his uncle, Robert Greer, a man of imposing presence and unsettling gaze who died under inexplicable circumstances. It was said that Robert had committed suicide, but whispers among family members suggested a more sinister fate. They murmured about the influence of Freemasonry, an organization to which Robert had devoted his life and which, according to rumors, demanded too high a price for its secrets. When Jonathan inherited his uncle's house in South Dakota, he returned to the town with a sense of desolation, aware that there were hidden stories in the dark corners of that ancestral mansion. The house, with its wooden structures that creaked with the wind and corridors that seemed to whisper secrets, seemed to have a life of its own, pulsing with the echoes of the past. During renovations, Jonathan discovered a secret room behind a bookshelf in the library, a sanctuary for Masonic artifacts and his uncle's diaries. The diaries detailed ancient rituals and Robert's initiation, marked by nighttime ceremonies where the fire from torches cast dancing shadows over hooded figures, and oaths that bound one's soul to the fate of the lodge. The initiation, described as a painful rebirth, revealed promises of power and veiled threats against those who dared to betray the circle. With each page turned, Jonathan felt the weight of invisible gazes upon him. Phenomena in the house intensified, shadows chased the corridors at night, and whispers filled the air, speaking in forgotten tongues. One day, while exploring the diaries, he read about a specific ritual that spoke of eternal payment for those who saw the secrets but chose to abandon the fraternity. That night, a brutal storm isolated the house from the rest of the world. The electricity failed, and in the pulsing darkness, a hooded figure emerged in the main corridor. The presence was almost palpable, and the voice that emerged from the hood was both familiar and terrifying. "Did you really think you could simply inherit and escape, Jonathan?" The figure approached slowly, each step accompanied by a soft ringing of bells. Jonathan ran to the office, locking the door behind him, but the sound of scratching began to echo in the walls. By dawn, silence returned as abruptly as it had been broken. The next morning, neighbors, concerned about the prolonged silence, broke down the door. They found Jonathan lifeless, fallen in the office, with the last diary of Robert open beside him. His body was marked with ancient symbols, a mute warning that Freemasonry not only commanded in secret but demanded a price that only the very brave or the terribly foolish would attempt to avoid. The news of his death spread quickly but was shrouded in a veil of mystery and fear, a somber reminder that there are truths in this world that are too powerful and dangerous to disturb. Jonathan Greer became yet another story whispered in the shadows, a cautionary tale for those who dare to unravel the secrets of Freemasonry. As news of Jonathan's death spread, the local community was enveloped in an aura of awe and suspicion. Many believed that Freemasonry was involved, but few dared to speak openly about their suspicions. Greer's house, already imposing and somber, became a symbol of warning in the town, with residents avoiding passing near it, especially at dusk. In the weeks following, the investigation into Jonathan's death was marked by strange interruptions and inconsistencies. Documents disappeared, and witnesses suddenly changed their stories or left town without a trace. The police chief, a serious and until then determined man, began to appear nervous and distracted, muttering about pressures from higher-ups. Meanwhile, inside Greer's house, even stranger phenomena began to occur. New residents, drawn by curiosity and the inexplicably low price, reported hearing voices whispering through the walls at night, discussing ancient secrets and future misfortunes. Personal objects disappeared or were found in impossible places, and the cold inside the house seemed to penetrate the bones, regardless of the season. A group of paranormal investigators, drawn by the stories surrounding the property, decided to conduct a nighttime vigil. They set up cameras and audio recorders in various rooms, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. What they found exceeded any expectations. The cameras captured shadows moving against logic, and the recorders picked up a deep, booming voice repeating a warning. The veil between the worlds is thin here, and the price of knowledge is the soul. As dawn broke, the investigators were pale and silent, unanimously deciding never to return to the house. One of them later described the experience as staring directly into the abyss, where the abyss stares back at you. The video of the shadows and the audio recordings were archived, deemed too disturbing to be released to the public. Greer's house remained closed after that night, with the town slowly building a wall of silence around it. The few who remember the events speak of them only in hurried whispers, fearing that mere mention might attract unwanted attention from the forces Jonathan Greer attempted to challenge. Jonathan left a legacy not only of wealth and knowledge but of a dark warning about the dangers of unearthing secrets that should remain hidden. In South Dakota, the line between legend and reality is thin, and the Greer house is a constant reminder that, in some cases, the deepest mysteries are those that command everything, silently watching, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul daring to unravel their secrets. The Altar of Madison. Madison Langley was known in her circle of paranormal enthusiasts as a fearless investigator, whose passion for uncovering the darkest secrets led her to the most remote and forgotten corners of the world. Her trip to the Arizona desert was motivated by rumors of an abandoned Masonic altar in a town that, according to records, had disappeared from the map decades ago, known only as Shadow of the Needles. Upon arrival, Madison found a town that seemed frozen in time, with crumbling buildings and streets covered in sand. In the town center, there was a chapel with a striking altar, covered in Masonic symbols and Latin inscriptions that spoke of immortality and power. The atmosphere of the place was charged, each shadow seemed to hide a secret, and every whisper of the wind brought a shiver. Intrigued and somewhat disturbed, Madison set up her cameras around the altar and decided to spend the night, hoping to capture something that could prove that the legends were more than just stories. As the night progressed, the temperature dropped and the surrounding desert became a dark and silent void. At 3 a.m., her cameras began to capture mists of strange shapes and shadows that moved independently of natural laws. Then, hooded figures appeared suddenly in front of the altar. They began a ritual, speaking in a low chorus that did not seem to come from their mouths but from the air itself. Fear took hold of Madison, and a sense of imminent danger made her run. At the altar, she noticed a medallion glowing with its own light. On impulse, she grabbed it before fleeing. As soon as the medallion touched her skin, a wave of cold ran through her body, and visions of future disasters flooded her mind. In the days that followed, Madison was haunted by vivid nightmares and inexplicable accidents. She began to investigate the history of the medallion and discovered it had belonged to the town's founder, a renegade Mason who was cursed by his brethren after attempting to expose the darkest secrets of the order. Determined to end the curse, Madison returned to the town of Shadow of the Needles with the medallion. She tried to return it to the altar, hoping that this would end her torment. However, when she placed the medallion back, the hooded figures appeared again, this time acknowledging her presence. "You cannot return what has already been taken," said the central figure, his voice as cold as death. "The medallion has chosen you, and now you are one of us." Madison, realizing she had no way out, challenged the figures. "I reject your curse and all that you represent," she declared, throwing the medallion onto the altar floor and smashing it with a heavy stone. With the destruction of the medallion, a deafening scream echoed through the chapel and the figures dissolved into mist. Madison felt the air around her clear and the curse lift from her shoulders. She left Shadow of the Needles at dawn, with a sense of victory, but also a deep sadness. Madison knew she had narrowly escaped and that many before her had not been so fortunate. Her return to normalcy was slow, as every shadow and every whisper reminded her of the night at the altar. Madison continued her paranormal investigations, but with a new perspective on the dangers of unearthing the past. She became an advocate for respecting the secrets that some forces of the universe have chosen to hide, teaching others that not all power or knowledge is worth the risk. The story of the Masonic medallion remained a somber reminder, a dark chapter in her career that she rarely discussed, but never forgot. The Pact of Samuel Holloway. Samuel Holloway, a renowned historian with a deep expertise in the influence of Freemasonry on the founding of the United States, always found himself enveloped in mysteries and conspiracy theories. It was believed that such organizations, far from the public eye, shaped not only nations but the course of human history. His research took him to many dark places, but none as disturbing as what he would encounter at that conference in Philadelphia. During the event, an enigmatic man, whose eyes seemed to hide centuries of secrets, approached Samuel with an irresistible offer: access to documents that had never before been seen by the public or academics. The price? Samuel had to join the local Masonic lodge. Driven by a mix of academic curiosity and a thirst to uncover the truth, he accepted, unaware that he was stepping onto ground many considered sacred and dangerously protected. Samuel's initiation was marked by rituals that seemed anachronistic but were laden with palpable power. At the center of a hidden chamber, he was led to swear allegiance, not just to the lodge, but to its ideals and secrets. The following weeks unveiled the promised documents. They were ancient texts, star maps, and scrolls that spoke of prophecies and powers beyond human comprehension, including macabre predictions involving his own descendants. The documents revealed an intricate web of Masonic influence that stretched across governments and realms, suggesting that many world leaders were, in fact, members of the order. The implication was clear: Freemasonry not only influenced, but in many cases, controlled world events. It was a shocking revelation, placing Samuel in a perilous position, as he knew too much. As time passed, Samuel began to notice he was being followed. Dark figures watched him from a distance, and he received silent phone calls in the middle of the night. His discomfort grew into palpable terror when he began to have hallucinations, visions of his ancestors warning him about the danger of his quest for knowledge. Desperate to free himself from what he now perceived as a curse, Samuel attempted to destroy the documents. On a rainy night, he set fire to the papers in his office, hoping that with them would burn also the obligations and threats that had corrupted his life. But strangely, the documents seemed immune to the flames. They did not burn; instead, they glowed intensely, as if fueled by the fire itself. The climax of his struggle came when Samuel, cornered by his own terror and the constant surveillance of the shadows that now inhabited his life, decided to confront the lodge. In a final meeting, he declared his intention to leave the order, renouncing all its secrets and powers. The response was a sepulchral silence, followed by a single sentence that resonated like thunder in his mind: "No one leaves the Grand Lodge." That night, Samuel disappeared. His office was found burned, but in a way that defied explanation. Despite the evident destruction, the Masonic documents remained intact, scattered over the charred table, as if protected by a supernatural force. Samuel was never seen again, and his story became a whispered warning among those who dare challenge the established order. Samuel Holloway's legacy lives on not just in the memory of his research and discoveries but also in the silent fear that now permeates academia about the true powers that govern our world. He is remembered not only as a historian but as a man who looked too long into the eyes of truth, a truth many believe is better left hidden. The fate of Alice Monroe. Alice Monroe was a young woman full of dreams and aspirations living in the bustling city of New York. Working as an escort to pay the bills, Alice always knew she deserved something better for herself, fueling the dream of one day opening her own cosmetics company. Her beauty was unmatched, a blend of classic features with a gaze that seemed to see through the soul, which did not go unnoticed. One day, while working at a luxurious Manhattan hotel, Alice was approached by an elegant man with a smooth talk and penetrating gaze. He introduced himself as Mr. Landon, a successful businessman and influential member of Freemasonry. Landon was fascinated not only by Alice's beauty but also by her intelligence and determination. He made her an offer: if Alice agreed to join a special Masonic lodge and participate in its rituals, he would ensure the investment needed to start her business. Driven by the opportunity to change her life, Alice accepted the offer and was quickly initiated into the Masonic rituals. These were not mere ceremonial gatherings. They involved ancient practices that promised power and protection, including rituals that tested her courage and loyalty, even going as far as drinking what they claimed to be pact blood to seal her devotion to the order. In a short time, Alice saw her fortunes dramatically change. With financial backing from Landon, she launched her company, which quickly thrived, transforming her into a rising star in the business world. However, the cost of her new life soon became evident. As her wealth and status grew, personal tragedies began to haunt her. First, it was the mysterious illness of her beloved sister, followed by the loss of her best friend in an unexplainable car accident. With each tragic event, Alice began to see the sinister pattern behind her gains. She realized that the price of her rise was tied to losses in her personal life, a macabre pact she had unwittingly accepted by drinking the blood during the Masonic ritual. Desperate to free herself and save those she still loved, Alice confronted Landon, demanding to be released from her commitments to the lodge. Landon, with a cold smile, simply reminded her that the pacts with Freemasonry are eternal, and that her renunciation could cost much more than she was willing to pay. Days after the confrontation, Alice suffered a terrible accident. Her last memory before losing consciousness was seeing a hooded figure at the wheel of the car that hit her. She survived, but was confined to a wheelchair, with her mobility and independence drastically reduced. Alice Monroe had climbed the social ladder quickly, driven by ambition and the allure of a promise of power and wealth. With each new success, however, the shadows around her seemed to deepen, creating a cloak of fear and paranoia that slowly began to suffocate her. After the terrible accident that left her confined to a wheelchair, Alice realized that her life had become the stage for a sinister game controlled by hidden forces. The luxurious apartment she had purchased with her newfound wealth, once a symbol of her freedom and success, now seemed like a Gothic prison. Unexplained sounds echoed through the vast rooms at night, indecipherable whispers, footsteps in empty rooms, and the distant sound of chains dragging across the cold marble floor. It was as if the walls were imbued with the dark essence of the rituals in which she had been initiated. Alice began to see figures in the corners of her vision, hooded figures that disappeared when she tried to look directly at them. Most disturbing were the mirrors. Each reflection seemed to distort her image, sometimes showing her surrounded by dark figures, or worse, displaying her face with grotesque expressions she never made. The loneliness exacerbated her terror. Each silent phone call, each knock at the door with no one on the other side, fueled her growing despair. Alice knew she was being watched, punished for her attempt to renounce the ties she had so recklessly accepted. The weight of isolation was palpable, and her mental health began to fragment under the relentless pressure of fear and guilt. On a particularly dark night, as the rain violently beat against the windows of her apartment, Alice had a vision that froze her soul. In the blurred reflection of the window, she saw herself standing, unconfined by the wheelchair, surrounded by lodge members in their ceremonial attire. They watched her with critical eyes, and one of them, who closely resembled Landon, approached and whispered, "You can never leave us, Alice. You are ours now, in body and soul." Panic made her scream, but no sound came out. Her voice was as confined as her body. The next morning, exhausted and defeated, Alice made the only decision she had left. She would sell everything and move to a small town, hoping to hide from the clutches of her pursuers. But peace was a distant and elusive lover. Even in her new home, Alice's fear never fully dissipated. At night, she could hear the sound of a car stopping on the street, car doors closing softly. Sometimes, in the moonlight, she swore she saw figures watching her house from the shadows. Alice lived her days in a constant state of vigilance, every little noise or disturbance a possible threat. Her health deteriorated, her spirit broken by the promises of an order that demanded far more than she could have ever imagined. In the end, Alice Monroe became just a shadow of herself, a warning to those who, through ambition, come too close to secrets that should remain hidden. She spent her days looking out the window, the world outside so close yet unreachably distant, reflecting on the terrible cost of her dreams of grandeur. The irony of her existence, a woman who once aspired to the heavens, now trapped in a labyrinth of her own choices and the machinations of a power that extended far beyond her understanding. The Pact of Tyler Mason. Tyler Mason was a talented young man from Southern California with a singular dream: to become a world soccer star. With exceptional skills and relentless dedication, Tyler soon caught the attention of scouts and coaches. But his path to success was about to take an unexpected and sinister turn. At the age of 19, during a soccer tournament in Los Angeles, Tyler was approached by an elegant man named Mr. Edwards. Edwards was an influential businessman and a high-ranking Freemason, known for his ties to the professional soccer world. He saw in Tyler not just a talented player, but a key piece for his expansive plans in the sport. During a luxurious dinner, Edwards introduced Tyler to the idea of joining Freemasonry, explaining that the organization had a significant presence behind the scenes of professional soccer. According to him, many clubs, coaches, and even referees were members of the order, and joining could ensure Tyler a prosperous and rising career. Intrigued and somewhat naive, Tyler accepted the invitation, seduced by the promise of success and wealth. His initiation, however, was more disturbing than he could have imagined. In a secluded mansion, Tyler was subjected to rituals that tested not just his physicality but his soul. One of the most shocking rituals involved an oath of loyalty under the threat of a sword, and the consumption of a drink that he was told contained the blood of champions, supposedly an elixir that would bring him strength and luck on the fields. Quickly, Tyler began to climb the ranks, moving from a local team to a renowned European club. His skills on the field were undeniable, but his rise was visibly accelerated by contacts and contracts orchestrated behind the scenes by Freemasonry. However, the price of his rise began to reveal itself. Tyler was often required to participate in Masonic events and rituals that consumed his time and energy, distancing him from his family and friends. His relationship with his longtime girlfriend and his parents began to deteriorate as his secret commitments intensified. At a crucial point in his career, Tyler faced a painful choice during a Masonic ritual: to sacrifice his relationship with his family to ascend to the next level of success and power within the order. Faced with such a grim decision, Tyler found himself tormented by fear and guilt, realizing that the world of soccer, so influenced and controlled by Freemasonry, was more corrupt and manipulative than he had ever imagined. Tyler chose his family, refusing to continue with the ritual. As a result, his career suffered an abrupt decline. Inexplicable injuries and controversial referee decisions began to undermine his performance on the field. He was sold to a lesser club, his promising career crumbling as quickly as it had risen. Eventually, Tyler left professional soccer, disillusioned and weary. He returned to California, where he began coaching young players, sharing with them not just the techniques of soccer but also the dangers of being seduced by promises of power and wealth at any cost. Tyler Mason's story ends with him looking out over a soccer field at sunset, contemplating the pure and simple game he loved before it was corrupted by the secrets and shadows of Freemasonry. In his heart remained the hope that, by sharing his story, he could protect other young talents from falling into the same traps that nearly destroyed his life and soul. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like to support us. And more importantly, if you have any supernatural experience, don't keep it to yourself. Write your story in the comments below. Share your encounter with the unexplainable, feed the collective curiosity, and who knows, maybe together we can unravel these mysteries that linger like a mist between the world of the living and the dead.